homework, if you haven't got it in your plan book yet. And the schedule's on my little whiteboard by the door also, or the not door, the doorway. So if you need at any point, just check that out and know what's going on. So today, we are, I don't really even want to, I was going to say changing gears, but we're not. Like, we're changing unit number. So now we're in section 2 of chapter 3, but we're not really doing anything different. Aside from, now we're going to have more problems presented as subtraction. And if you want to make it easiest, as we talked about, if you make it addition of a negative, that is likely your easier option there, because addition is easier and order of addition doesn't matter. So, again, Smart Ink is being weird, or my whole smart board is being weird. There we go. So we talked about the plus and minus tiles, and we talked about them yesterday with on your homework. Actually, I don't know if anyone asked the question in here, but on 311 or 312, I forget which one it was, it says, like, draw a diagram of pluses and minuses to represent the situation. That's just like this. Just like when we use the tiles. Now, if it said 3 groups of 4, I'd probably try to make it look like 4 pluses, 4 pluses, 4 pluses, as opposed to just like a cluster of things. But think about these questions. How can we remove negative tiles when the only thing that exists are positives? How can we, how can we think about subtraction when there aren't enough to take away? And when does subtracting actually make things bigger? And that's a really hard concept to comprehend. Ava, what's up? I do, and it even looks like a little piggy. What? It's a factual answer. All right, so.
I think some people, I'm just making sure they're all where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, my class is all here.
Connor T. Simon. Okay, thank you.
So check out that group. In your, well, not even in your mind, on your notes, go ahead and write down what you think you see there from that cluster of tiles. So, and somebody in my afternoon class always asks this, what's the fun title? Because sometimes I make up a fun title. I don't know. There's no real way to make the title of your notes that much funner. Just subtraction. Funner. Yeah, I know. I use that as okay. Apparently Natalie's very upset that I think things are funner. Natalie, what if I start singing the fun song? Happy friends who do stuff together, you is free. Okay, we're not going there. Alright, what do we see in that little cluster of tiles? Brendan? 4 plus negative 6, right? We have 4 positives and 6 negatives. So, if the plus tiles are removed, and we don't have those now, how do we represent that? How do we show that? If we're taking away the plus tiles. So how do we mathematically show it? Like,
so you would just do like 4 plus negative 6 minus.
yeah, if we're going to remove the plus tiles, all of these guys are going to disappear. So we would have to then modify this. I don't know why the vertical line doesn't go with it. You see what it broke my plus. Like, why?
So evil.
Minus 4, right? So we just add, so go ahead and write a minus 4 on the end of your expression, because if we take away those positive 4, that's going to be minus 4. And then if we take away 3 negative tiles, which we know we could do, right? Grab these and take them out. But how do we write that? That's not actually, we're not adding in 3 positives, right? If we're talking about what we're physically doing, Ava? Yeah, if we're taking away, wouldn't it be subtraction? Subtraction of what? Negative what? Negative 3. Now, Ethan or somebody said it, but we could just add 3. Scott?
I'm a little confused. Why would it be 3?
What do you mean 3?
Like -3.
We're working through this problem here. So 3 plus tiles are.
Oh.
Sorry, I wrote 4 instead of 3. My bad. We're gonna go with 4 then. So we remove 4 plus tiles. But then what happens if 3 minus tiles are removed? Here we can do that. Right? We're able to do that. I'll like let the cat out of the bag. Where we're headed is to where you can't. What if we don't have negative tiles to take away? And we've already I started to coin what I do often is over teaching. We've already talked about this because we watched the PBS Math Club video. We've talked about these ideas. We talked about minus and negative being plus and positive. Like you already have some setup for this knowledge. So I see a lot of blank faces. Which one? It's early to learn math. I get that. It's before 8 a.m. No one wants to do anything before 8 a.m. But I think it's also because you guys are like, okay, we get it, right? So if you have questions, please stop me as we go. But let's just keep rolling on and look at 25. So if we talk about diagrams of pluses and minuses, we might grab out the algebra tiles in a minute, or the integer tiles. Sorry, I keep calling them algebra tiles. But we want to be able to have like all these different ways to talk about things. So can we draw a picture to represent it? Can we write the math that goes with it? Yeah. Can we make up a situation, like a story that could go with it? I'm going to start to incorporate that in your tests. I did that with, I forget which test, but it was just pretty open, like make me up a situation that would work. So, yeah, sorry, I just haven't graded those yet because they're still in my bin. I'm going to do that this weekend, hopefully. So, for A, it gives us the picture, right? How would you write that out? So, on your notes, take like 20, 30 seconds to write out what you see in A, and I'll zoom in a little bit.
In letters?
In like math. So like an expression, an equation, whatever you want to call it. Then talk with your team. See if they wrote it the same, which you might write it differently. But if you start with the assortment shown there, and then we do what the diagram is showing us to do, how do we write that out? What I need to be able to write. You guys can't be the only ones having fun. And then you should determine your new total. Check your work with each other for A, and then work through B and C as well. So in B, it gives you... Hey, give me your attention for just a second. I realize I didn't describe this well enough. B, it gives you the math expression. You draw a picture to represent this, and then figure out the final value. And C, it gives you the story, so you can draw a picture, or you can write an expression, but we, again, still need to find the final value. Okay, so in all of those, we're essentially doing what it doesn't have. Then if you get through all those, you can cycle back to A and B and make up a story. So for A, how many positives? So you start with an 8 and then a 2 and then a negative 2. Right? But then they remove 2 of the negatives. So how would we write removing 2 of the negatives? Because you want to write this out all as one expression. So for A, I realize this is a little bit confusing to get started. What we see is an 8. And then 2, and negative 2, but then what happens, shouldn't have written that actually, is they're taking away, right, the arrow's going out, taking away the 2 negatives. And physically, we know what that's going to result in, right? I can see it. What do I have left in the diagram?
Oh,
Even?
-2 plus 8.
I have 10 pluses in total, right? The group of 8 and the group of 2 and the minuses are gone. So this is going to equal 10. In B, we want to draw it, right? So if I start with 8 negatives, then we take away 3 of the negatives. You want to draw how we represent that, like the book is showing us in A. It's -8, right? So 8 negatives for part B. For part B. You even have a book in front of you. How we show the takeaway, like the book does. Circle it and draw an arrow, right? And you're removing. Grab what you want to remove. Take it out. So in B, if we remove 3 of these, they go somewhere else. We don't know where. They just go into some abyss.
They run away from their heroes.
I should use some cards this morning. Then I don't know where any of you guys are sitting now. What do we end up with left in B? 5 negatives, right? So -5. C, take a moment, because I know we probably haven't gotten to it yet. It is a story problem that then we can write an expression for. It's cold outside. Oh, that's not that cold. In Ohio, we go negative all the time.
I know, I'm just saying. They said it.
Not dropped to 5 degrees, dropped 5 degrees.
Oh.
That doesn't mean that's where you landed, that's just a change.
This is never
Higher than that, I think it's like -15.
That's why.
It all depends on wind chill. Air temperature is not what determines it, it's wind chill.
That's why I lived in Florida for 9 years.
Oh, you were what?
That's why I lived in Florida for 9 years.
Well, now living in Florida is kind of a bad idea, depending on where the panhandle got like, wiped out by the hurricane. I don't think it's really caused much human damage. Like I think like a person or two died, but they stayed. Like people that stayed through the storm. It all depends on like where it hit. Like I have a buddy who lives in a part that was expected to get hit, and they didn't really. They got like storms, but it wasn't that bad. And then one of my relatives lives in Panama City, which is what got really hit. Like people's houses. If you looked at the pictures, there's houses with like water up to like windows, like high. Those houses are
Well, they
flooded.
always, to me, they
Casey,
over-exaggerate it.
can you explain to me how you wrote out the situation for C? 0 minus 5. But Casey, if you have nothing, how do you take away something from nothing? You what? What? I can't. There's nothing there.
Normal math.
But that's not normal. So here, Casey, I have 5. What's your favorite candy? Okay, I have 0 Kit Kats here. Okay, Dan, I have 0 Kit Kats. You want to come take 5? I got 0. Okay, you can have 5. So wait, so Adrian just said something interesting. Shh. Say it again.
You owe me 5 Kit Kats.
If I say that you can have 5 for my 0 Kit Kats, that's like me taking on a debt of 5 Kit Kats. Right? So we end up at a temperature of -5. Because, Casey, I'm not just goofing around. Hey, guys, I'm really surprised that I'm having this much issue this early in the morning. Normally when classes get flipped to early, like, people just want to get through what we need to get through because you're still tired. But either way, we need a little bit more respect than what we've been having. You guys are talking over your classmates. You guys are talking over me. I'm trying to make sure that we all understand. If you understand this, great. But not everyone does. It's a hard concept. So Casey, I'm not just giving you a hard time. It's impossible to take away something from nothing. Like physically, right? We're going to talk about real math. But I could commit to that and take on a debt. So I now owe Adrian 5 Kit, and now I don't really owe you 5 Kit Kats. Which, by the way, there's now laws in place about trick-or-treating, so you might want to check that out if you're thinking about going. Yeah, Franklin County put some laws in place. If we get through the lesson, I'll look them up and we can talk about them. But yeah, you can get a fine for trick-or-treating if you're too old.
What?
How old are you? Wait, how old is too old?
I think like 12 or 13. Or no, 13. I think you have to be under teenage.
What?
So, okay, I understand. I understand I did that, right? I made that happen, but refocus. The only reasons I'm comfortable making off comments is because I trust that we can refocus. Okay, so we have F situations here. Wish they would just number everything, but that wouldn't make sense. Work with your team to solve through all these situations. My best advice is for most of these, change it to addition. Right? Not just addition of a positive, but change it to addition like we talked about previously. Now, some of these, and this is, if I haven't told you, I think I've told you this. I'm in a discussion on Reddit trying to help people understand this. Like, some of these make sense to look at it as takeaway. Right? And one of my favorite comments on there is if I have a board that's 8 feet long and I want to cut it down to 6 feet, I am going to take away 2 feet. That makes sense. So like A makes sense to talk about as takeaway. But B doesn't really. Physically, in the real world, that doesn't make sense. It's like the pizza delivery driver showing up empty-handed. He's like, I got your 4 pizzas here. No, you won't, man.
C makes no sense.
Talk with your team.
Oh, yeah. Here, come in. Wait, you don't have pizzas? No.
If these would help you guys think through these problems, if these would help you think through this, but if minus positive 2, like if I look at it as taking away, that 2 is positive.
Because then I can stay home and buy it a board.
I'm like mildly OCD, but I really like organization. By the way, I'm going to random card to go through this, so please make sure you're talking with your group to understand this. So, this is that lesson where, like, if all you did was learn rules, you just want to apply the rules, but, like, kind of was like just being a jerk to Stacy. Like, no, you can't do that. Like, 0 minus, but I have nothing. So, trying to get that conceptual idea of just being like add and negative, like why, right? Like, not just because 2 negatives make a positive, or not because, like, why.
The negative minus the
And, you can see everything from all this later, though. Like, you just got a pile of paper, like, shoved in his pocket. But aside from that, he seems to be on. I had a conversation.
money tree.
No, I can throw blood at you.
I'm like,
My costume That's like, oh no, you gotta lose it down. You should definitely
Where are we at? C, D, E? Okay. I'll give you another one minute or two. Why don't you have the originals? Nope, write out the originals. Write equal to, write out the originals. Guys, you should have the originals written on your paper, not just an answer. If you're just writing answers, you need to go back and write the originals. On your paper should show 7 minus 5 equals your answer. It should show 0 minus 4 equals, or it might show a rewritten expression, like a different expression. Thank you very much, Aiden. Appreciate it. Alright, so because I like my Smart Ink better, I'm going to swap these around. So sorry, that's going up on the TV. Yes. 8:20, because you need to go to Creative Start at your normal time. Sorry, Natalie, I'll get you out of here soon as I think. I know this is painful. Hey, I'm sorry about PTSA last night. That was lame. You had to sit through the talk about issues 9 and 10. I've heard that topic so many times. I just hate it. Sorry, my A looks like a 9. I'm going to capital letters. 30 seconds to wrap up your conversations. Ten seconds. And can I have your attention, please? Eva! The only person that should be talking right now is Mr. Smith. Or me. But Eva, how would you explain 7? Can we just do it? Do we need to rewrite it? How do we get to our answer? Mm-hmm. Yeah, kick them into the abyss or wherever. So what do you end up with? So that makes sense as takeaway, right? My woodworking situation. If I have a board that's 7 feet long, can I cut 5 feet off of it? Yeah. I end up with a 2-foot board. I don't know why I had a 7 one to begin with, but I can do it. B. Should just lay a bunch of these out. Riley. How do we explain B?
Well, it's like the 0 and the -5. It's like it's in depth, so you have to do so you have to rewrite it as 0 minus plus in parentheses negative.
And then what do we end up with? Yeah. If we start with nothing, you can't take something away from that. The idea of subtraction being takeaway is broken. So we have to add a debt or add those negative tiles into the situation, which does the same thing, right? Or bring in a bad guy, right? Whatever you want to think in your head, I would change it to plus the negative. Natalie, talk me through C.
Okay, so it's like, so you have -6.
Okay. If I draw it out, okay, I have -6.
Okay, and then you take away, then you add.
Can I do what it's asking me to do? So, this is where people get goofy, okay? And, like, I know this is hard. This is asking us to subtract 2. Which, if I look at subtract, or the minus, or that symbol, as take away, this is positive. Do I have 2 positives to take away, Natalie? No. Darn it. Because it's taking away positive. So instead, we got to change it, not subtraction. We want addition. So we should really rewrite this as -6 plus a -2. Because if I can't take away positives, could I bring in 2 more negatives? Yeah, I can always add more tiles in. Whether they're positives or negatives, I can always add more in. So here's how you would have, like, well, even teachers that just don't care to explain the why, here's what they'll tell you. Give me your eyes up here. If I'm at the -6, can I go down by 2? Yeah, I can always move either direction. So minus can also be looked at as go down, and then I get told 2. But if we think in a physical situation we're trying to represent, I start with 6 negatives. I'm asked to take away 2. Not 2 negatives, but take away 2. I don't have 2. I have 0 positives. So instead we have to add in a -2. Does that make sense? Then it's -8. So the other way that we used to, like that we talked about like a week or 2 ago, I have a bad guy at power 6. Like bad guy strength 6. Take away good guy of strength 2. Well, there are no good guys right now. There's no good guys to take away. But what has the same effect, hey Nathan, I need you with me, not building towers. What has the same effect is adding in more bad guys. Are we cool? D depends on the day.
Well, since it's Thursday,
It is Thursday. D, Adrian, can you help me out here? How do you explain this?
Don't you add 4 to the 3 because if you can't, there aren't any -4s.
We should all be listening to Adrian because he's brilliant right now. There are no negatives. We're being asked to take away negatives. If we start with 3 positives, I got no negatives. So instead, we can turn this into 3 plus 4, which again, if you just learned rules, the rule is minus a negative equals plus a positive, which some of you have seen from 6th grade. 2 minuses, minus negative. When we're talking addition, subtraction, makes a positive. Now here's where people start to get rules back and forth. Also in multiplication, 2 negatives make a positive, but in addition, different problem, right? So if I have like -7 plus -3, that doesn't make a positive. This is where people get goofy. A negative plus another negative makes a bigger negative. So be careful, we're talking about minus a negative right up against each other. Minus negative right there. Not 2 negatives like this, okay? I just wanted to clarify that. So if instead I add in, what do I end up with? 7. Questions on that one? There were no bad guys to take away, so we add in good guys. And E, I might as well just use a billion pages here. E, Ava, I need some help from you. How do we explain E? Ava, not Eva. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. If I start with -8, I have 8 negatives. I'm asked to take away 5 of my negatives. I can do that here. So I just grab 5 of my negatives, take them away, and what are we left with? -3. Now the other way we can do this is -8 plus 5 if I bring in 5 positives. Now everyone do me a favor. On your paper, draw 8 negatives. Just 8 dashes. if instead of thinking about it as minus a negative, we apply that rule that minus a negative is plus a positive, what happens if I drop 5 positives into this set? What happens when I have a plus and a minus, or a positive and a negative, with each other? Ava?
They fight against each other and then they both lose, so then they die.
That's 0, that's 0. Yeah, they both become 0, which I guess if we're being morbid, they're no longer existing.
They're dead.
So the same thing happens whether I take away bad guys or bring in good guys. We end up with 3 bad guys left. Joey. I have enough negatives here. So the issue previously in D was we started with positive, and there were no negatives to take away. So D, back here we started with the 3 positives. There were no negatives to take away. In E, I start with negatives, and I could take them away. Or I could bring in positive. I had either choice here. But that was being true. You didn't have it to start. So in D, what we had to start are just these blue tiles. There are no negatives to take away. Now, Joey, because you ventured down this argument, you've now opened a can of worms. Joey's trying to argue that I can take away 4 negatives here. Go back to D for a moment. Go back to D. Like in your brain, go back to D. I like said it 3 times. If Joey really, really, really wants to take away 4 negatives, he can. Because what happens when I add 0 to something? Nothing changes. So wait, magic. Have I changed what I actually have here? Yes. I still have 3, right? Because this is 0, that's 0, that's 0, and that's 0. Now, can Joey take away his 4 negatives? Yeah. Well, I agree. These are nothings, right? But they're nothings made up of a positive and a negative. So we think physically, right? You put 3 pluses on your desk. Then you put 4 pluses and 4 minuses. Your total value together is still just the 3. But now I have negatives on my desk that I can take away. And I'm left with those extra positives, which still equal 7. Whatever makes sense in your brain is fine, as long as you can make sense of these problems. Okay, you don't have to take this method, but Joey kept arguing that he wanted to take away 4 negatives, so I'll give it to him. One more, we got F. F, -1 minus -9. So draw this out. Actually, I need you with me. Let's do this all together. We start with just -1. We're going to take the Joey method on this one. Joey wants to take away 9 negatives. Do we have enough negatives to take away? No. So to bring in more, I can just do, okay, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus. How many more negatives do I need?
9.
Well, not 9 more.
8.
I need 8 more, right? Because I already have 1. Okay. All of these are zeros. Every positive negative pair, I need to stop saying plus minus. Positive negative makes 0. Positive negative makes 0. Positive negative makes, okay, I'm not going to keep repeating that. But now, can we take away 9 negatives? Yeah. So, grab this negative, and then these 8 negatives. We take them all away. What are we left with? Positive 8, which is the same.
Hold on.
Your answer should be positive 8.
Rainbow's getting
So, especially if your brain feels like it's melted right now, that is fine. We are going to pick this up tomorrow. What I need, hold up. Your team needs to get all your tiles back into your bag. You can leave your bag there, but if I have to pick up tiles, I'm coming to get you out of Creative Start. Do not leave my room a mess. Whatever you got out, you're putting away right now. So Laviva, stop playing, start putting them away. I gotta get you to Creative Start. So, won't take any questions, concerns, any of that tomorrow. If you struggle with your homework, bring me questions. Okay, bring me questions that we can work on together. Yo. What? You just remembered what?
Blue stick.